Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Effort. Today we are doing some knife awards. Now, I'm tempted to just say these are the 2018 knife awards, but truth be told, a lot of these knives didn't come out in 2018, and I've only been doing the review game for about 4 months. I started in like mid-August. So this is just going to be knife awards right now with what I've experienced. So anything in the past that I've gotten to handle or see is fair game. So next year it might be relegated to just knives in 2019. I don't know. Haven't made that decision yet. I kind of like the idea of just slowly like updating what the best of best are all time. That might be a separate video though. We'll see. So these are the categories. I've got a lot of categories, but we're going to move through it pretty quickly because I'm just going to mention the runner-up and the first place winner. So it should be pretty quick conversation per category, but I do have several categories. They are best budget knife under $50, best gateway drug knife. So kind of self-explanatory, but the knife you would give somebody that's maybe like, I don't know if I want to be in the hobby or not. You give them that knife and it'll inevitably make them want more knives. Next is the best blind recommendation. So if I don't know you, if somebody just asked me, what should I get on the internet, and I don't know anything about you at all, what knife could I recommend to you, and pretty much guaranteed to at least be able to use it, if not enjoy it quite a lot. The best EDC, so that's really favoring a little bit more on like the portability side, but still being an effective cutting tool. Best fidget knife, I think that deserves its own category. Best workhorse knife, and then lastly, my favorite knife. This is just my personal choice. I'm going to give you my top 3 on that one. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, let's start with the first category, which is best budget knife under $50. I don't have all the knives that I'm going to talk about today. I'll splash them up on the screen so you know what they look like, and you can watch my reviews if I have them. I think I have a review on most of these things, not quite everything. And my runner-up to best budget knife is the Honey Badger, which just kind of came out of nowhere. It's not even made by like a major knife company like, WE or Kaiser, any of the subsidiaries that they have. And I really like that knife. It kind of looks weird, but it's got several different ways to open it. It's got the flipper tab. It's got the, opening aperture. It runs on bearings. The clip was awesome. It's pretty comfortable in the hand. And you have a small, medium, large. So even just preference between size of knife, that kind of has you covered. And so I can easily recommend that to somebody that's looking for a knife on a budget. But ultimately, my decision goes to this knife, which is the Civivi Backlash. This has a fantastic action, even better than the Honey Badger. And it's just the knife that if you hand this to somebody that's not really a knife person, but maybe just has a passing interest in it, they're gonna like this knife. This is the one that I gave it to, people at work and be like, what do you think of this knife? No information. How much do you think it's worth? They all guess like $200 plus, like just being conditioned with all the expensive knives I have. But, just the illusion of quality, not illusion, this is a quality product, but not $200 quality. And so this is definitely batting above its pay grade. And, the steel is better than garbage steel. It's going to be something you're going to have to sharpen from time to time, but not absolute garbage. The grind is really good, and it's just fun to play with and very practical. I think it looks pretty good. The clip's awesome. So that's my top budget pick right now. A lot of the Civivi knives have similar quality. This one is the smallest one, and it still manages to be a medium-sized knife. So that's why this knife in particular of that brand gets the nod. So next is the best gateway drug knife. And this one's tough, but I think second place is the Para 3. And this is probably the number one in terms of all time, the gateway knife. It's just once you get one of these and you realize, oh, this looks kind of like a toy. It looks weird. Looks kind of cheap. It's all plasticky. And then you get it and you realize that it's been designed to be used, from the ergos to the blade steel to the jimping. Just everything about this screams practicality, but it has some room for some like personalization with all the different scales you can get, the different steels you can get. It's small enough to be EDC, but robust enough to be like your main knife. And so I think this is probably the knife that in the past has been the best gateway knife. You can always get your hands on one. You're not going to be able to get the steel you want per se, but if you're okay with, just normal S30B, you can get one pretty easily. But I have a new contender, and this is the one that's going to win this category, and that's the Ray Laconico Keen from Massdrop. This is around the same price. It's about $140, a little bit less, a little bit more, depending on what configuration of the two knives you get. But this knife is really, really awesome. And the reason I think it's such a good gateway knife is a few things. It's not the biggest knife you've ever had. It's definitely smaller than the full size, 3.5 inch medium sized knives. But it is a lot bigger than the, little 3-inch or the 3.25 inch one. So it's right where nobody's going to hate it, but they might go either direction of like, man, I like this knife a lot, but what if I want to get a bigger knife? Or what if I want to get a smaller knife? Like, this is right in the in-between. It gives them a good example of like what fit and finish can be like, of what action can be like, of ergos, clips. It kind of gives them an idea of what they should be looking for in a knife. And it's just so bland, yet somehow enthralling and enticing at the same time, that you can kind of superimpose your own like personal like preference onto this knife, if that makes sense. That it's not super divisive as far as like if you like this knife or not. Most people like it. It just might get you curious into more knives. So I think that is like the perfect knife or role for this knife to fill, and that's winning that category. Next is my blind recommendation. So this is, I know nothing about you. What knife should I get? Maybe somebody comes to you and you're like, oh man, I can't think of a gift to get my dad. You're like, oh, does he like pocket knives? And he's like, oh, I think he might have had one, but he lost it. He'd probably use it if I gave it to him, but I don't know anything else. Then there's two knives that really come to mind that I think could kind of just be a safe go-to. And it's going to be, the Keen is my runner-up. And similar reasons to why I think this is a gateway drug, of just, even if you end up not wanting to get something shorter or longer, if you really are the one and done type, then this is right in the middle, and it can kind of roll into any of those needs that your knife use might come up with. So if, even as like a gentleman's folder, it's so clean and simple and not scary, even though it's kind of bigger than like a small gentleman's knife, like this could pull it off. And so it's kind of, the chameleon of the knives. And so just like this might get people interested into a lot of other knives, it's also good enough to where you can just get it and be done. But that is not the knife that is my number one for the blind recommendation. It's going to be the Spyderco Spidey Chef. And a lot of this has to do with the materials and the design of the knife. LC200N is nigh unrustable. H1's a little bit more corrosive resistant, but this is extremely difficult to rust. On the first version, the weak point, the Achilles heel of this knife, was the detent ball was steel. So that steel detent ball was the only thing really preventing you from just like tossing this in the ocean and coming back 3 days later and still have a good working knife. That one ball would rust and get all over the place. They later replaced it with a ceramic detent ball. So that really removed the Achilles heel of this knife, in my opinion, as far as just, you can pretty much do whatever you need to do with a knife in any, atmosphere. You can be a pirate, you could be a lifeguard, you could be in the desert, you could be in the kitchen, you could be in the woods. It doesn't matter. The edge retention of this, the corrosion resistance, the size of the blade, which is, just a good medium-sized blade. The ergos fit pretty much everybody. The clip is useful. Everything about this is just durable, reliable, and, top tier in the category of just like use it and forget. It's the most idiot-proof knife I've ever come across. And so that is easily going to win this category. Now, the next category is I'm calling it the best EDC knife, and this is one of the heavy hitters because, a lot of us, we're going to be carrying something in our pocket pretty much the whole time that we're not at home. And so this can be very important. Some people only have one or two knives that they're really going to, keep and use all the time. So this might be the most important category of all. And this was really hard. This is definitely the category I really agonized over, trying to pick what it makes sense to be the best. And I'm kind of ignoring cost on this one. It's just, we're in the hobby, or if you're watching this and this is your jam, you probably have more than one knife. So what's the best of the best? Kind of just forgetting price. I'm not talking about diamond studded gold like most expensive. Just, if you don't really care that much about price, what's the best? And I think it's a new kid on the block. I haven't even had a chance to review this yet. It's going to be my Shergorov Hadian. This is basically the baby of a Neon and a Hadi. It's the size of the Neon, but some of the upgrades of a Hadi. It's got the multi-row bearing system. It has the carbon fiber scale, obviously. And so what ends up happening is you just have the perfect crossroads of something that is incredibly small and lightweight. I'm going to spoil my review here, but this knife is just awesome. It hits the right spot for EDC. The blade is extraordinarily useful and practical without being too scary. I think, that's going to be a major, question in terms of the best EDC knife, because if you can't pull out your knife in front of certain company, then you're not going to be able to carry that knife. You could just carry a machete around, but some people are going to be scared of that. So it needs to be something like a gentleman's folder, but with a little bit more use in mind for all the different tasks that you might have. So this is it. This is a Hadian with Vanex 37. I think this is probably the best steel for a pocket folder, beating even like M390. I think M390 and all the similar ones, 20CV and 204B, those are cheaper, and so probably better for most knife makers to choose, and they have just more brand recognition. This is kind of brand new, it's kind of untested, but I think most of the preliminary testing that's going on, when the heat treat's right, Vanex 37 is pretty much better than M390 in every way, except for maybe sharpening. So you have something that can, have awesome edge retention, but still be corrosion resistant, like LC200N. Not quite that high, but very high for like food prep and just whatever you're going to throw at this knife, it should be able to take care of it. On top of all that, the action is fantastic. So fidget factor's there. If you're in a situation where you're in your cubicle and you get to just flip and do whatever, or if you're on the couch, just a knife that you always have with you. It's always going to be reliable. It's always going to be fun. It's not going to be a burden in your pocket. I think this is probably the winner, and only just beating out the Shamwari. So I feel like I didn't want to start with the Shamwari and surprise you all that this isn't the winner. I don't know. If I had a 3.3, this is a 3. And the ergos just aren't as good as the Hadian is. If the ergos were a little bit better, this probably would have won. I think I like the blade finish on it a little bit more. I like the uniqueness of the front flipper and not having a flipper that's pecking on stuff. Normally this would have won this category, I think, but I need to have a 3.3 or 3.5 in person before I can make that call. For now, we'll concede it to the Shergorov Hadian as the best EDC knife. Hopefully I don't regret that decision. Next is the best fidget knife, and the runner-up is a knife I don't have anymore. I've had 2 so far, and that's the Olamic Busker. The Busker has the opening aperture and it's a front flipper, so it's kind of unique in the regard, just that particular configuration of 2 different ways to deploy the knife. It's small, it's comfortable, but mostly the action of just flipping that and all the different ways you can do one of these jobbers, type of a thing. I think there's like 10 different ways to open up a Busker, and so I think that is the runner-up. But the knife that's going to beat the Busker is the new entrance on new kid on the block is the Pleroma. The Pleroma is really, really fun to play with. It's got the opening aperture, so I get to flick it open. It's a little bit easier to flick open than the Buskers were. I think the Busker really, it depended on the detent that you had as to how easy it was to flick. This one is a little bit more enjoyable to use. I have had people tell me that the detent on their Pleroma wasn't as good as mine, so maybe that's not a blanket, always better type of a situation, but this knife is just really fun to fidget with. It's the first knife where I'm really glad that it has thumb studs. I'm usually not a big fan of thumb studs, but these ones just work really well, and I'm pretty happy with it. And it's just such an attractive, comfortable, fun to flick knife. It's lightweight. It's much lighter than the Busker, believe it or not. And yeah, so that wins the best fidget knife. Next category is the best workhorse knife. Now, before I even discuss the runner-up, I just want to talk about this. The best, like, heavy-duty knife on anybody's list is a fixed blade, guys. It really is. Like, if obviously you might not be in a situation where you can have a really, large fixed blade knife with you sheathed, but I don't want you talking about how strong your lock is. I don't need to see videos of you hanging cars off of the lock or rappelling off of a mountain with your tree lock, stuck into a tree. Like, you're trying to show off how strong a lock is, but no matter what lock system you have, they're all going to be weaker than just raw steel. so I was kind of reluctant to even put this category in here, but really the winner of this category is a good fixed blade. But if you can't, for whatever reason, we'll talk about it. Runner-up is the PM2. I haven't had a chance to try a Shaman. The Shaman might be in this spot, might even win the category. I might update that as soon as I get a Shaman, but as of right now, the Paramilitary 2 is my winner. It is pretty thick stock. It's got steel reinforced liners. It's a beater if you want it to be, and it's going to be reliable. It's going to be easy to use, even if you have like gloves and stuff on. It's just a really fantastic knife. And there's so many steels that you could choose from. If you need something that's more tough, there's a 52-100 steel you can get, or crew wear. There's different ones that, can really take it to the next level as far as just like durability goes and toughness. But the winner, and I sadly don't have it, is a Jason Guthrie Ranger or Scout. They're pretty much the same knife, just different lengths. The Ranger's the one that I handled. It's just under 4 inches, which is not that far off from this blade. But that is basically like just a luxurious Sebenza with much better action and I think a better design language, more comfortable. Jimping was better. You have more options as far as like, what materials it's made out of. It comes with M390 standard. So I think that would probably be like, if I lived on a farm or something and I didn't want to have a fixed blade on me, it'd probably be a Ranger that I would get, Jason Guthrie Ranger. I think that's a fantastic choice for just, not overbuilt to be like ridiculous, but just really carefully designed to do the job and do it well without having a bunch of extra garbage on there as far as weight or over design, weird things on it. You know what I mean? And that brings me to our last category, which is my favorite knife. This is just my personal, right now, what's my favorite. Third place is this Hadian. And this is kind of a cheat because I've literally got this today. I'm frantically recording this video because I need to ship out the Shamori to the person I traded for. He gave me this knife. I'm giving him that one. And, but I really like it. It's a small knife that is extremely comfortable in the hand. The action is awesome. And I'm really excited to test this Van X37 and put it through, the paces of sharpening and just edge retention and stuff. I want to see how that plays out. So even though this is very new to me, I think this actually is in my top 3 as far as my favorite knife, to be honest. Second place is my Koenig Aries. And it's weird because this until very recently, would have been my absolute favorite knife. And it hasn't gotten any love on any of these lists right now, which is kind of weird. You know, if I had one just based on action, I think it would probably be on that list. I don't know if it's better than either of these two high-end knives. You know, I think the Chamois and the Hadian have maybe a little bit better action, but this is just behind it. I don't know. I love this knife. I got an anno job on it. I never want to get rid of this knife, even though it is tying up a lot of money right now. I just like it. I like it a lot. And so, yeah, that's my second place. My first place is kind of a cheat. It's based on the Chamois. It's not the Chamois itself, but it would be a 3.3 or a 3.5 inch Chamois would definitely be my favorite knife. You know, if I had to pick between this 3-inch Chamois and that Conagarius, I don't know what I would pick, honestly. I do know that I prefer a larger Chamois. I do. It's just a little too small for my hand, the 3-inch version. But 3.3 or 3.5 could very well be my all-time favorite knife so far. I haven't had a Holt Spectre. That's not anywhere on the list because I can't freaking get one. That might be first place in everything once I finally do. We'll see. But I like the finish on the blade. I like that it's a front flipper that actually works. I like how small it is in your pocket, how straight it is. It's just the most simple design, and I really do like it. So 3-inch with bearings, maybe boomerang, carbon fiber liner lock would probably be my configuration. Might do a 3.5. I haven't decided which one I want. That would be my favorite. If I have to only pick a knife that I've actually handled, it'd be the Conagarius. So it might not have gotten a lot of love on the other categories, but it's got my heart. So that's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! Quite fun to do. It's got the opening aperture for the flick